All right, welcome to the Portland Utility Board meeting on March 3rd, 2026. This is a meeting of community volunteers tasked to advise council on items related to the Water Bureau and the Bureau of Environmental Services. Under Portland City Code and state law, the Portland Utility Board is holding this meeting electronically. Board members and relevant city staff are attending remotely, electronically, or by phone, and the city has made it available for the public to listen to the audio broadcast of this meeting. The public will have an opportunity to provide comments during the public comment portion of the agenda and can also provide written testimony to the board by emailing utilityboard@portlandoregon.gov. PUB believes and acts upon anti-racist principles. In our meeting spaces and interactions with PUB, while every person has the right to share their personal perspective, we stand against wrongful conduct, particularly any conduct that is targeted toward people that are made vulnerable by systemic inequities. This means stepping up as a community when there is wrongful conduct and fostering a space of learning and growth. The full values are available at the link below. Putting our principles into action, be active and deliberate, speak up and speak out. Each person is empowered to maintain the culture of the Portland Utility Board. Focus on the impacted individual or population. Condemn the conduct, not the person.
Hi, my name is Amy Archer-Masters, and I'll quickly run through the meeting guidelines. When possible, state your name before you speak, and if appropriate, who you're addressing. Or just that you're addressing the group. The chat box is only viewable by the co-hosts, myself and Jonna Lynn. Please limit any chats to technical and logistical issues, including signing up for public comment, asking for technical assistance, or reminding us if you've been waiting to speak and have not been called on. The raise hand function can be used by participants. It's primarily used by the board during conversations. The co-host may lower your hand just to maintain flow of conversation. During public comment periods, the public can raise their hand and you'll be called on when appropriate. If connecting by phone, you can press *9 to raise your hand. Videos can be turned on when speaking if desired. It is not required. We ask that you mute your microphone when you're not speaking, and if you're connecting by phone, you may need to press *6 to mute and unmute. As mentioned, public comment is taken during the comment period early in the meeting. You can sign up by chat with myself or Jonna Lynn, or raise your hand during that comment period. It's also available just prior to any formal board vote after a motion has been made and seconded by board members. The meeting is being recorded. Pass it back to you, guys.
Thank you so much, Amy. The agenda today, after our call to order and disclosure of communication at 3:40, we have co-chair discussion and vote of the illustrious Lorraine. So excited to see the vote through. Thank you, Lorraine, again for just stepping up. 3:50, we have budget updates and discussion. And for those who were on just before, the Bureau representatives will present all the information that they have available and is appropriate to present today. At that point, we may just open up discussion internally to strategize how we can best show up in this moment in a more constrained and reactive time frame. At 4:50, we have announcements on the next PUB meeting, and then at 5 p.m., we adjourn. All right, starting with disclosure of communications. This is a moment set aside for any voting board members to disclose any communications with city leadership or Bureau staff regarding items that could relate to PUB's work. Are there any items that PUB members wish to disclose? Seeing none, we move forward. Sorry, one sec. This is a call for public comment. Was any public comment submitted prior to the meeting, Amy?
Not received anything in advance and have not received any chats.
Beautiful. This is your moment if you are a member of the public and wish to speak or provide comment. Now is your opportunity. All right, seeing none, we move forward. Next up, we have a review of the minutes from minutes for both February 3rd and the 19th were distributed. Are there any requests or changes or corrections? Beautiful. Seeing none, the minutes are accepted. All right. Pub is in need of a second co-chair, and Lorraine Wilson has generously volunteered to step in for 6 months. I'd like to invite Lorraine to share with Pub why she's interested in the role, and then we can proceed with the nomination process. Lorraine, you have the floor.
Hi, good night, everyone. I'm going to be brief. I think you all heard me speak last year when I was being reappointed. So the reason I'm volunteering for 6 months is because I think it behooves me as one of the senior members of PUB to step up, because when I was new to PUB, I don't think I would have, I felt comfortable doing so. So here I am presenting myself based on, as I said, you all would have heard all about me, who I am, what I do, and all of that at my reappointment. So here I am volunteering to provide the support that we need right now to be co-chair, and so that we continue doing the great work that we are doing as pub board members. And that's my motivation. Step up when the time is needed for you to step up. So here I am.
Beautiful. Thank you, Lorraine. I'll just double down. I want to say I always appreciate, Lorraine, your voice and the way you live your values. And I know I think you called out that like I smile when you speak, but it's because you are fully yourself, and it's always so appreciated. So thank you for stepping up in this moment as well. Beautiful. I would entertain a motion to nominate Lorraine Wilson as co-chair for a period of 6 months. The motion is put forth. Is there a second?
Second, this is Cormac Burke, voting member.
Beautiful. Thank you, Cormac. Is there any discussion or even like points of support people would like to raise?
Thank you for stepping up, Lorraine.
Yes,
Thank you, Cormac.
This is Jenny. Thank you.
This is Daryl Bob, voting member. Yes, thank you very much, Lorraine. I think you're gonna do great, and I appreciate you just lending your experience and your voice to us newer members for the time being. I'm sure in the 6 months we'll be more than ready to pick up the mantle.
Beautiful. Is there any public comment to submit? Great. In that case, we moved. Do we still move to a vote, Amy?
Sorry. I think you heard verbal support from everybody, so you can either formally vote or just accept that it has been moved, seconded, and been supported by members who are present.
Heck
and
yeah.
ask if anybody has opposition. I'll just say, as staff, thank you, Lorraine, for all your contributions over time, but especially being willing to step up in this time. And in tandem with that, I'll also welcome any of the newer folks who, anytime you want to step in or learn from your co-chairs as we go, just feel free to reach out, and we can always connect you or provide opportunity to sit in and show you what it may look like, so that if perhaps 6 months from now, if Lorraine is not interested in continuing, that you can consider that yourself.
Beautiful. Jenny, you have the floor.
Yes, hi. I just wanted to say, Lorraine, thanks so much. You were there when I was getting ready to speak to the council, and you just cheered me on. So I appreciate the way you welcomed me, and I know you're a good leader. So I'm glad you're going to be doing this for us.
Thank you, Jenny, and thank you, everyone, for the support. Appreciated.
Beautiful. Just for the sake of the audio recording, I'll read what happens next, and then we'll move forward. Pub staff will create a document for the mayor's signature. Lorraine can serve informally until official, which includes our upcoming leadership meeting with bureau representatives. And once signed, pub staff will update materials. Beautiful. At this point, we'll yield the floor to potentially. Do you want to go first, Amy, and then hand off to Beautiful? So Amy will go first, really building on the timeline of events and providing some context and some more up-to-date announcements in terms of the flow of budget across the city, and then the floor will be yielded to Bureau representatives and leadership to share what information they have available.
Exactly. So I will just be brief initially, and then we can come back and dive deeper as appropriate into any content that you all want to explore more fully. So you by email should have received current service level budget information. So as you saw, if any of you dug into those documents, they're quite lengthy documents, but there's some good executive summary of kind of the circumstances that the city's facing, and the significant gap, budget gap to maintain services at a current service level. So that combined with financial challenges in the current year, particularly on the general fund side, the city is needing to weigh some tough decisions in this coming month or two. The gap is about 169 million, I believe, if the most recent numbers that I was looking at is accurate. About 116 million of that is the general fund side, and about half of that is related to some of the sheltering services that are provided. I think it's about $53 million, and a significant amount as well is public safety, 29 million. So there's some pretty big gaps that they're working towards. And obviously that's where a lot of council focus is, because a lot of that is related to discretionary funding, where they have the discretion to make decisions about where the funds are going to be used. So where we're at in the budget timeline, this is for those of you who have been around before, this is a very different year than in times past. It's evolving as we go. So the current circumstances, they had the council work session on current service level was just last week. And the citywide information was reviewed at a very high level, and some discussions of the basis for the gaps and what some of the next steps are. This morning was the first service area presentations that were provided, where they talked a little bit more about the gaps specific to the different service areas and some of the trade-offs that are needing to be considered. And so that was for public safety and for community economic development service areas. Next week is the service area presentations for city administrators, city operations, as well as public works service areas. So that is where we'll hear more about the utilities, a little bit more in depth, combined with the others. Again, those work sessions are they're work sessions of council, so there's not public testimony at those work sessions. The following week, then, or on the 19th, is when council will have a work session that, as we understand it, will be digging a little more deep into potential budget cuts and revenue options, and just a review of kind of everything that's on the table. I do not have a date known yet for the utility rate work session or hearing, but we do know April 20th is still the target date for the mayor's proposed budget. So in my mind, I see that as one of the key windows to potentially get feedback if you're hoping to have some input into what the mayor is putting forward. And then subsequent to April 20th, then there will be additional sessions that council will have as they move towards an approved budget. So that's where they'll get into a lot more of the policy decisions. So we can come back to the dates and more as we move forward, and talk a little bit more about, what your priorities are for feedback to council, and how we'll use the time that you have available in meetings or outside of meetings in order to try to get something meaningful to council prior to when those proposed budgets come out. But in the meantime, I think Director Ting Lu is here today to share a little bit more detail as far as what the utilities have been doing for developing their budget and what they are moving forward with at this point.
Thank you
Hi.
so much.
Sorry to interrupt. Amy,
Yeah.
the utility rate hearing, is that likely to take place after the mayor's proposed budget on April 20th, or it's just sometime in April that will be conducted?
I'm not sure. I think the tentative date that they originally had on the calendar was April 15th, but that was really just a placeholder. So my assumption was if it's going to happen that it may be around that time frame, but we'll know more. I think once they get through these initial work sessions, they'll work out a bit more of the details of the budget sessions and tentative times that they've set aside and work out the details of how they're going to use those sessions to move their decision making forward. And Director Liu may have different information because obviously she's more in the middle of all of those discussions and working closely with the Deputy City Administrator, Donna Paul, as they do that planning and work. So I welcome her to share anything else that is useful if appropriate.
Yes. Thank you.
And thank you so much, Amy. And I also want to start by thank you the PUB members for your continued support for the utilities every year on our rates increase and everything. So I think, Amy, your presentation and updates are really relevant and updated for what we will be doing in next week. So it will be a big week for Public Works and for us to provide the updates to the council members on the different scenarios. We have 3 scenarios just to remind everyone. The maintain current service level. The scenario 2 is a reductions to align with spending with the previously forecasted revenue. And then the third scenario, which is going to having more significant impact to the utilities, the 5% rate reduction scenario. So as of now, there is still discussion and conversation with city leadership to finalize everything that goes to the Public Works the presentation next Tuesday. I do like to see that we will be providing an update to our employees ahead of the March 11th work session to giving employees all updates and heads up on what is going to be presented at the work session. And I'm happy to provide an update to the PUB members during that time, just to giving you all an update and heads up on the presentations. I think it will be great to taking some time maybe for the next PUB meeting so we can provide additional information for the 3 scenarios and answering any questions you may have and to prepare you for any engagement you would like to have with the council members. So those are the additional updates and touch point I like to propose and see if PUB members have any additional questions or thoughts as we are engaging and hearing your feedbacks as part of the process.
Jenny, you have the floor. And just to confirm, Director Liu, it's really just you're looking for questions from PUB. There is no formal presentation today?
No, we're still finalizing a lot of things internally. So want to make sure you all are kept updated on the process and timeline. We do plan to bring back the presentation and everything on the 19th. But I'm happy to share with you all next week ahead of the work session about what's going to the work session and giving you all a heads up if that's
Cool.
helpful.
Thank you so much. Yes, we will open the floor for questions. And yeah, Jenny, if you want to kick us off.
Yeah, Jenny O'Connor, voting member. Yeah, my first question, Ting, was just to clarify that you're going to be giving a presentation to your employees, and would be that be the same time that we would listen in, or I mean,
Yeah,
what were you thinking?
yeah, Jenny, just to clarify, the work session is to the council members on the March 11th in the afternoon, 2 to 5. DC Donna Paul, Bureau Director, so myself and the Transportation, the Parks, all the Public Works directors and DC Donna Paul will provide an update during this March 11th work session. When I was referring to the employees update, I was referring to DC Donna Paul along with the bureau directors. I will be sending an email to our respective bureaus about what are the updates, what are the different scenarios, what are the potential impact to bureau staff ahead of the March 11th work session. So our employees hear from us first before they can hear from during the public setting. I was offering, if it's helpful, I'm happy to send an email to all members during that time, and then that can also help to getting any questions you may have and to prepare for additional engagement with you all on March 19th, if that works for you all.
Yeah, speaking for myself, I'd love to get some information ahead of time. Would that be like the same memo that you'd be sending to employees then?
Yeah, it will be kind of a similar information we can share with you all. And also just any questions or things you all have before the 19th meeting, we can try to incorporate that as part of the presentation to you all on the 19th.
Okay, and I have one concern, just because I haven't been hearing much about it, but I know that they've been floating different options for tacking fees on to the utility rates for transportation. And is that going to be in this year's budget or?
For the transportation fee, it's not going to be starting in July. There will be a future calendar year for incorporating that fee, but I'm not sure where the decision making is. I would suggest we invite DC Donna Paul for talking about the update and decision makings, but it's not going to be starting July. Right. We do have a flood safety benefit fee that will be additional to the utility bill.
Yeah, I know the flood safety fee it was going to start, but I would just like more information about the process of what's going on with those fees that they're
Sure.
floating. Anyway, I yield the floor. Thank you.
And I can provide more updates next week once I'm confirming with DC, Donna Paul, and others on the process.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Jenny. Lorraine, you have the floor.
Thank you, Kyle. Lorraine Wilson. Voting member. I was going back and forth whether I should say co-chair, but I'm not yet. Voting member. Hi, Director Ting. So I know that the process this year is very different because we have a new administrator. So we're almost going through a second year of new processes. I understand that. And based on our experience last year with the new budgeting process, and there was some, the council wasn't aware of how hubs roll, and we had to push and push and push and push and push. And eventually, thank goodness, because of us being persistent and the knowledge that we have, we were able to influence, I believe, and I'm saying this with confidence, why it is we recommended a rate increase. This year, here we are again. And I know I'm belaboring the point, and I understand, believe me, I do understand what you all are dealing with. The limitations you all have, the constraints, and all these things. However, I want to know how we can apply that same informed pressure on the powers that be with this new process to understand our role and why it is important for us to know what it is that when we agree to something, a rate increase, or we have that when we agree to that we are doing it based on sound information and knowledge as the representative board of residents of Portland, Oregon. And I hope that the powers that be understands the uniqueness of Portland and the expectations of Portlanders to be involved in this whole process and to feel that they have been provided with information, they've been informed, and that they are involved or something, because the backlash is not pretty. And even the simple thing as the rate that is going to be added on for the land use thing, I am not sure how much communications have been done about that, or communicating to community for them to understand it is still concerning to me. In addition to the fact that I, as a pub member, don't have the information, and I'm telling you, Director, I understand the constraints you all are dealing with. However, it does not subsume my role and what it is I need as a pub member to be confident in supporting a rate increase or supporting that the rates be held the same, and that the residents of Portland are assured that we as the representative body is doing the due diligence that we need. So if that could be shared with the powers that be, and I keep using that term, please do. Please do, because we do play a vital role, and I'm not tooting our horn or anything. We do play a vital role, and I think you all. I think staff knows that intimately, but I hope that it's a reminder and a continuous reminder to them that that is it. So I'll end by saying my question is, when are we getting the information that we need so that we are informed to support what is needed and be out there to champion for the community, for employees, and for the infrastructure. I look at that three-legged stool. I see my role as being that three-legged stool: the community, staff, and the infrastructure, in no particular order.
I will just respond briefly here. Thank you so much, Lorraine. I love your three legs, the analogy. I'm taking notes here: communities and staff and public infrastructure. So I'll definitely provide this feedback to DC Downapal and also city leadership. I do see that we'll continue working on our process, and I will be providing updates on Monday, just so you all know about where we are with the utilities. And I want to invite you all to watch the session on the 11th, and let's making sure that we hear your questions and thoughts, and supporting you all for the information moving forward. And I can't thank you all enough for your support for last year. Remember that. And then I think we will making sure that we take the opportunity for this year and continue the process improvement moving forward. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Lorraine. Thank you, Director Liu. My question is in accordance with Lorraine's observations. I'm in full alignment with the clear statement presented and speaking from a position of advocacy for community and the larger reactive state that this juggling of sequencing and delaying is putting on everyone. And so my question comes from that same point of origin and orientation. My question is, it's partially tied to the bottom rounded rectangle that Amy has flagged, really the first two, the second and the third rounded rectangles on the shared screen. Director Liu or Farshad, actually a little bit of context first. I understand that everyone's being pushed into reactive state. Even reviewing our past planning, we were looking at trying to lock in our messaging on February 19th meeting. It's now March 3rd and we're still being pushed into a reactive state. So two questions. One is, how do we maximize our voice through either written or spoken testimony? Because there's a lot of now cast dates and unknown dates. How and when do we anticipate, and is that known? And secondary, are you concerned from a bureau or a public works perspective with this continually and more tightly constrained time frame that council even has the capacity to make informed decisions and review the density of information you're about to present? So how do we maximize our impact? And do you have concerns that there's just not enough time to make a lot of really important decisions?
I'll start. Thank you, Kyle. This is something I will look for from a process standpoint, is really kind of a follow-up and probably next Monday, and getting you some additional information and touch points for moving forward on how we can supporting you all and answer all the questions on the information budget and rates and everything. And we are happy to meet anytime that works for everyone, and making sure that we are here to support you all and providing that information. I know this is the first year with a lot of the change in the process. So I do see that after the work session, there will be additional discussions and everything. We have been providing committee members on some of the key project updates and filtration project and other things. So I do hope that they will already have some foundational understanding about the challenges bureaus, utilities especially have. So we'll see the process, and we'll continue coordinating moving forward.
Thank you, Director Liu. I guess I can clarify my line of my questioning is the Public Works Council work session, which is closed door, no public testimony. That's March 11th. The budget work session with council is March 19th. And then based on last year's precedent, the utility rate review is April 15th. And Amy has flagged that early April potential submission for written feedback for council. Should we roughly target early April prior to that April 15th? It's been in the past years. Utility rate review, should we target early April for like our direct engagement? And I'm also asking and even Amy, if you want to answer, like I'm asking, thinking about the meetings we have as a body to communicate and coordinate, and why I flagged even like previously, we were trying to look at, okay, February 19th, that's our shot to like get tight messaging. We don't even have the information to reflect on what we want to communicate. So just not so that we're totally reactive and trying to scramble, just try to say, okay, we got one more shot, March 19th, because then our next meeting's April 7th, like March 19th, we can try and get as much information as possible and prepare for some action. That's the nature of my questioning right now.
I will defer to Amy about some of this touch point, Kyle. One thing is what I can do is confirming. I don't have the rate session in front of me. I'll confirming whether that's being scheduled or anything, and then we can circle back with you all early next week. And I think I want to make sure that you all have enough information and to bring to.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And I'll say too, like I asked this not to create another pressure point in this like hyper constrained time frame. It's just us as an organizing body, just to try to stay coordinated and proactive in our approach.
I completely understand, and I want to support you all.
Cool.
So I really understand your intention and your support. So
thank you.
Again,
thank you
so much.
Thank you, Director Liu. Anything, Amy, to complement Director Liu's response?
Yeah, I think that as you said, is the timing that I think is the best given what we know so far is um, we don't have a lot of information, but we do know some of your priorities and language that has been consistent year to year. And so I expect that we'll want to echo a lot of that in this year. The challenge is not knowing what to focus on to be most impactful because we don't know that until we get some sort of sense from the conversations with council or what the mayor is putting forward, what's at risk, whether they're recommending or potentially putting forward something that is close to current service level or whether there's an expectation for reduction, because then that's where the messaging will become more pointed in either counteracting a potential risk and advising something different or just supporting the approach as it moves forward and then just echoing some of the comments that you all have made in prior meetings. So as staff, we'll certainly be watching the March 11th and we'll share the information that Director Liu shares with staff as well as what they share with council so that we know where we're at based on the limited time frame and what I saw of the first work session. There's still not a lot of detail that comes out in those work sessions. So but my hope is that at the March 19th meeting, as the Bureau continues to get a little bit more guidance on what is moving forward and can share more detail around that, that will have to make really good use of the March 19th meeting and potentially that first April 7th or something in between there. I, as staff, will certainly work on drafting stuff just based on the feedback that I'm hearing from you all in those meetings, as well as individually, and my experience with you all from the past. But it is more compressed than it typically has been, and what I've seen is that is true of the whole process. I don't see a lot of opportunity for public feedback other than very generally at a high level through the online form submission. One of the primary tools for feedback are those district listening sessions. I've also heard some council members, I think Councilor Avalos has put out a survey to her district trying to get a sense of budget priorities. And I've heard conversation from other council members kind of liking the idea of that. Now, of course, the challenge of those kinds of surveys is that they're at a very high level. What are your priorities? What's most important to invest in? You don't actually know the details yet of two trade-offs that they're considering so that your feedback can actually be tailored to say, we don't want you to fund this. This is more important. And I think that's where some of PUB's feedback and other members of the public's expectation is to have a little bit more input in some of those specific trade-offs. So that's challenging this year. It's different than it has been in the past, but we'll continue to monitor and try to find the best hooks in for you all to share your feedback. I believe probably something in writing by early April will be valuable. And as soon as I know more about any of the hearings that have a potential opportunity for verbal testimony, certainly if a rate hearing is scheduled or any other sessions where if what is moving forward is concerning to the pub, then helping you identify whether a chair or other designee can speak up on behalf of the pub, even if it's just very brief and pointed testimony.
Thank you so much. That's super helpful, Amy. I'll give like 20 seconds. I'll just, as opposed to trying to ask another question, we have Alexis, Daryl in queue, and I think Jenny might have lowered her hand. It just at a gut level, it feels like not only offering some kind of advocacy or feedback on the nature of the reduction packages or those three scenarios, like this would hurt a lot. This is really painful. It's all painful. This one's super painful. That one could be an opportunity for contribution. The other one is kind of in the spirit of Lorraine's point, which is, look, if we can plan and we have to raise the rate, we have to avoid incremental surprise fees that get people backed into a corner. Like those two feel like strong, and that's just me talking as one person, not trying to set the agenda. That's why gathering a timeline of consensus to know how many meetings we have to get our messaging clean with as much content from the bureaus as possible to inform and really root them. So it's not just speaking from the heart, but actually speaking from some empirical weight. I will not ask the question. I'll just say it is, all of it's kind of concerning, and having such a constrained time frame with so much information to review, I just worry on and council's, some reported challenges in either reaching consensus or trying to deliver decisions. It's a lot to fit into a small window, and that with all these other big spikes of huge budget gaps, just concerned that the Bureau's needs might fall through and that these thoughtful decisions can't be rendered. I'll not ask the question to Director Liu. I'll say that. That's a stressor for me. Okay, I yield the floor to Alexis. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Alexis Rife, voting member. Amy, I originally raised my hand because on the last slide, I think you had where our pub meetings were. Yes. And just thought that this was like a helpful reference, especially seeing where different things are going to be pulled up. But then since then, I have two other kind of additions to make. First, on this point around, I think it would behoove us to agree on some kind of broad themes and talking points where we land on priorities and on some trade-offs and kind of our guidance there as soon as possible at this meeting and at the next one. So, and then maybe at the next meeting, designate Kyle and Lorraine then to be spokespeople when it is made, what is the word? Available to us. I'm concerned that there does not appear to be good opportunity for us to provide our input, because as Lorraine highlighted so eloquently last year, I think our input was extremely important. And I think that again this year, it will be. So I would encourage us to think next time about designating our chairs in advance to be able to speak on our behalf. And then I think it would be very helpful for us today for the rest of the meeting and at our next meeting to have conversations about what are those risks and where are we on trade-offs. And I would add, I think we should continue to advocate for the financial assistance programs and the need to protect those. But then I remember maybe this was like in my first year as a board member, it was like, are we okay with like a 5-minute wait time for folks who need assistance on the phone versus like a 2-minute? And I'm making up these numbers because I don't remember what it is. But I think like things like that, it would be helpful for us to figure out where our acceptance is. And then I have one question that is probably a little off, but I will ask it anyways, which is about where the conversations are at the council level about the PSEF funds. I think it would be helpful perhaps to have, maybe that's as a backgrounder for our next meeting, about where conversations are or where there are indications about the use of those funds, especially since, well, I'll betray my opinion here, but the Bureau of Environmental Services and Water, are slightly linked, at least, to the original intent of those funds. I think that's all I've got for now.
Is there any response to Alexis's questions or points raised? I think those are spot on, by the way. That's my response. I'll actually respond very briefly before like an official response is given. This is the vibe. And seeing the scenario's roots are our position, but the high level points, you flagging these are major categories or talking points, I think that's excellent and astute. So I'm in full alignment with Alexis's proposal.
I'll just say, thank you so much, Alexis and Kyle. I don't have any additional updates on the PSAP information, but I'm happy to circle back and see where that is and follow up next week. And I do want to say I have another meeting at 4 o'clock. I need to jump off, but I really appreciate everyone's support and we'll be circle back shortly, early next week.
Thank you, Director Liu. Best to your next meeting. Daryl and Lorraine, your hands are raised. Do we still, you think, field the questions and just record them to then submit to Bureau reps?
Yeah, I think it would be great to just get everything that folks have lingering in their minds. And we will take note of that and we'll follow up. I mean, I can follow up also internally with budget office staff or others around the PSEF funds as well, and other items as they come up. And I guess just as a preface to, and we'll remind this at the end as well, is that if as we share information about what is shared at the March 11th or any of the information that Director Liu shares next week, or as you learn of anything, in the public sphere, if there's other questions that come up, please reach out to me and let me know, or Jonalyn and I, so that we can be prepared and help the Bureau staff know what questions are coming for the March 19th, just so that we can maximize the use of that time as well. But yeah, I'm in full support with some Alexa's suggestion of really trying to hone in some of the priorities that you want to emphasize and where some of your lingering questions are, so that we can make sure that we're prepared. And by default, the co-chairs probably would want to formally vote just in case Lorraine's not official in time, but the co-chairs do have the authority to speak on behalf of the pub based on your role facilitating the pub and drawing from the meetings. But if there's any others, Lorraine and others, before she's official, or others who might have space and interest in speaking up, if one of you two cannot, then it would be great to formally delegate that by the next meeting as well, so that somebody else might be able to step into those shoes if for some reason the timing worked better for somebody else.
Daryl and then Lorraine, and actually I have a couple of mechanical questions, and then I might, Daryl, you have the floor next.
Now, Bob, voting member. Thank you, Kyle. I share the same concerns that you all share. I guess for the record, I'd like to maybe bluntly express the type of information that we're lacking, and what we hope will come maybe out of this public work session is exactly where the reductions are going to take place, if they need to take place. I think that's the information we definitely need to kind of squeeze out of the Bureau and Council. So, and that, I think, is what's going to put us in a place to then, like Amy said, say, well, no, you can't cut that. Or why aren't you looking here? I guess the other thing is, if rates need to increase. That's what we've been learning this whole time. I guess what other information we need to know is how that rate increase is tied exactly towards current service levels. Because I'm sure you have all been seeing what's happening here. We have all these fees getting tacked on to our utility bills. We also have an increase coming to facilitate these mega projects. What we're not hearing enough of, and it's going to be hard to argue going forward, is also why the rate needs to increase to maintain current services. And yeah, so we just kind of need to squeeze the ammunition to kind of support those rate increases if need be, going forward. So I guess I didn't really have a question in there other than kind of aligning our priorities. I assume that's where we all sit, but if not, yeah, be sure to tell me otherwise.
I think you're on track, Daryl, and although it wasn't a question, I think it's a clear expectation, the need for that information about what the potential reductions are. I do know that one of the challenges that they face is the breadth of what has been asked, and what I hope we may see in the work session with council is the types of questions council members are asking, and that the bureaus will get a better sense of what direction it's moving, whether there's general support for the reasonable rate increase that's projected, or whether there's an expectation for significant cuts. Because if there's not, then you don't really want to put on the table substantial reductions that could be, layoffs and other things that impact people that are never truly going to be considered, because that's not the direction council's going. So my hope is that there will be a little bit more expectation setting of where council's at, and that might be something we learn. But I think your point is a good one, and the point at which we can get more information about what those potential risks are, what the reductions that need to be considered, if that's the direction they're going, then that is what's most relevant for PUB to understand and indicate which trade-offs you support and which are just not tolerable based on the needs of infrastructure.
Right.
I have a brief clarifying question. Kyle Chipman, voting member, building off of Daryl's points, and it was the similar point that I raised. Also, Alexis flagged it in a slightly different framing. That the reductions and voicing what would be cut to try to give some support. Those are the three scenarios that they've been requested, and those are expected to be delivered on the March 11th Public Works Council work session. Is that correct?
I don't know. I think the bureaus, I don't even know that the bureaus have, my guess is that they're working this week on what is going to be presented next week, because they're still getting guidance from the hierarchy on what is potentially moving forward. Yes, that is the range, is the three scenarios that the guidance provided for them, and sharing what the risks are, what areas are, what the gaps are, and what would be needed in order to fill that gap, what the consequences would be of reductions. That's from what I saw today in the work session that was provided, but at a very, 35,000 foot level. Like, I don't actually know the specifics of what's on the table for community and economic development or public safety. Like, it was pretty high level, so it doesn't dive very deep, but that high level information, it presumably will spur some questions that might be relevant to follow up on and see if we can get more information either on the 19th or subsequent to that.
Okay. So if not the 11th, then the 19th, but that basically puts us, the delivery of that information is the exact same day we have our meeting. So it's like, how much time we'd have? Like,
it is. Well, and the really unfortunate thing is that our meeting that's our Thursday meeting. So it's before the council work session where they're talking about cuts and revenue options. But I suspect the bulk of their focus is on the general fund side, because that's where the huge gap is. So, the optimist in me is hoping that that third level of scenario that they're talking about isn't even on the table for council consideration. And the question is between the current service level or not filling that gap, and then what reductions are necessary if you're not going to fill the gap between what was originally projected as a rate increase. But I don't know. I informally get a sense that I suspect they're not going to want to dig deep into them and create the same kind of problems that they're experiencing with other infrastructure bureaus. But I don't know until those conversations proceed.
Thank you, Amy. Thank you, Daryl. Before yielding the floor to Lorraine, can I just grab screen share real quick, Amy? There's one more piece that it's tied to something Lorraine asked, send request. Lorraine flagged this, and it's kind of this is the other type of information. Here, let me grab it. It's this one right here. And this was what was shared like May of last year, I think. Even though this is pretty high level as well, this served as the route to say, this is, current and projected for water and, BES, and this is what the combined would be. And it helped to give us a route to understand the cost of the trade-off to advise and advocate for the bureaus. So even this would also be super helpful, this type of breakdown.
I assume they'll have something like that for the presentation next week. So, and those materials I think should be published around the 9th or beginning of next week. And so once Director Liu shares that, we'll pass that along, but certainly, and they can dive more into those kinds of tables at the meeting on the 19th, but they prepare that kind of thing every year.
Awesome. Yeah, 100%. And then, so on the 9th, there is the actual submission of the documents before the work session on the 11th. So this would even be prepared. All right, tight. If anybody wants this, I can send the link back out. I'm doing similar to what Amy was doing. It just helps to see when stuff falls. So I can send a link out as well. All right. Lorraine, you have the floor.
Thank you, Lorraine Wilson, voting member. So I'm getting deja vu. And I remember last year we had the same kind of tension and pull and tension and pull. And I remember going back to who and what pub is. Right? And we had this discussion, hey, how was pub formed? Why was pub formed? What is our mandate? And I think that we need to have to go there again, so that who needs to know that this is not us, and this is not coming from a place of contention. I'm not here looking to be contentious with council or the new city manager or anything like that. But, and I don't think it was ever clearly articulated, but for some reason, this is stuck in that place where things get stuck in my brain, because as I have said in the past, I hold very little in my head. That pub was created because of some legal issue. Isn't that correct?
Yes, it's
yes.
It was formed subsequent to legal
subsequent to the city misappropriating funds. Should I say so much?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Right.
Seconded.
So I'm not going to be. It's not alleged. I'll not be sued. So here we are in 2026, after having had this conversation last year with the new form of government, that our role is legally designated, that we are here to ensure that what we do, that we have the information and the resources and everything that we can when we go forward. Because this is what I'm saying. When I go forward and say, I, Lorraine Wilson, raise my hand as a voting pub member, supporting a rate increase, supporting that the rate not be increased, supporting that the rate be reduced, is based on facts. And for some reason, and that's why I was indicating to Ting, not as strongly as I normally do, because I understand the pain that they're in, that who needs to know that and who needs to understand that needs to be told so that they can understand our role as pub members. Because we may seem insignificant. However, let me speak for myself. If I am not provided with the information that I need to say yay or nay, that is significant. And there needs to be some communication on how the city of Portland, and when I say the city, I'm talking about the residents, right? There may be a new form of government, but as far as I know, Portlanders have not given up their right to be involved, to be verbal, to be heard. It may seem at time that they're not involved or whatever, but when that rate increase or whatever hits whatever, as Darrell was saying, and we're just maintaining thing, and they weren't given the information that they needed to understand that, to digest that, and they will come to Pub and they'll say, hey, Pub, what you all were doing? What is the information you all were provided with that you all was okay with this, right? If there is some catastrophic failure, they'll come to Pub and say, okay, let's see Pub minutes. What it is you all were doing as that body who's in charge of looking at these things and seeing that these things are funded and raising questions and raising the alarm. So as a board member, I don't know how many people here remember the days of Enron or whatever. Go read it, Google, right? There is a fiduciary responsibility as a board member, and that is to be taken seriously. When you volunteer and you say, okay, I am going to volunteer to do this, there is a fiduciary responsibility that you're doing your due diligence and you're getting the information, or you're requesting and it is documented that you are requesting. It's on the record. You hear that term, the record. It's important that it's on the record, so somebody could come back and look at this meeting and say, oh, Pub was asking about this and they weren't getting this, or Pub didn't ask about this, or Pub just went along with the story, and it's very serious. And I just wanted to reiterate that, because we are not begging. What we are asking for, we are entitled to, based on why PUB, Public Utility Board, was formed. And I want that to be communicated clearly, because I think it got to the point where that had to be communicated clearly. That because I know, I've worked at Portland, I've worked at the city of Portland. Institutional knowledge gets lost very quickly, very, very quickly. Nothing is passed on. Everything is recreated. The wheel is constantly being reinvented. And I want to make sure that that information doesn't get reinvented or get lost in the institutional knowledge, because somebody who was supposed to communicate that retired or left or something like that. So I hope that that is clear when I am saying we need the information. As understanding as I am, we need the information, and that is why we need the information. So thanks. I'm coming off my soapbox. I'm going to wash.
Thank you, Lorraine. I hear you and have taken note.
Jenny, you have the floor. And I have a question following Lorraine's. And actually, I'm so sorry. Before I yield the floor to Jenny, as a quick time check, we have 16 minutes left in this section. So I'd love to take the last 10 minutes and, following up on Alexis's point, think through being proactive being enunciated and proactive in our priorities and messaging. I think it's a great instinct to follow through. And I have a thought about Lorraine's astute comments. You have the floor, Jenny.
Yeah, Jenny O'Connor, voting member. What I've been thinking, listening to all of you, going back to Darrell, is okay, we need information, but specifically, we need to know what's behind the decisions that they're making. How did they decide to come up with suggestions to cut things? We need to know why. We need to know what the trade-off is going to be, so we can make an informed decision in response to that. And also, something that gets lost is, are there political pressures to do certain things? And, a lot of this is talked about behind closed doors, but if there are political pressures, I would like to know what they are, And, you know, if they're going to, I don't understand the idea of what they're going to do with the general fund. Okay, they have a general fund shortage for a couple different areas. Are they looking to every department to like reduce their general fund allocation so they can, you know, give that to these other departments? I'm not sure what, you know, how that works. So again, specific reasons for, you know, for what the decisions are, specific trade-offs, and what does it mean in terms of service and dollars. And okay, that's all I got. Thanks.
In response to that final bit of the question, Jenny, yes, all general fund allocations or bureaus have been asked to put forward reduction packages, including public safety. So in some years when the gap is smaller, they've held harmless and not asked some bureaus to put forward reduction packages. This year, they've asked for that across the board. That does not mean that it will be applied across the board. They want all that information so that they can consider those trade-offs as a council across the city and decide what their priorities are. One date that I didn't have on the list is on March 7th, I think this Saturday, this next Saturday. Council is also meeting and holding a priority setting session. And again, that's not something where there's opportunity to provide input, but it's a long session for them to really talk about across council what their priorities are. That will then feed into the rest of these conversations. And that will be another really important piece, I think, to connecting it back to what your question was, to understand from council as they're considering everything that's on the potential list, to understand what their priorities are and where they may lean more deeply for reductions in order to fund some of what their higher priority items are, or things that were maybe one-time funded that they don't want to go away. That kind of discussion. So we'll be monitoring for the outcomes of that as well.
Okay, so just to clarify, is that meeting that the council is going to have, is that something that we can look at, watch?
I believe it is like a recorded, open to the public. I think it's a full day session, but we'll, as soon as any information is available, we'll share that with you. So.
Okay, thanks.
Jonalyn may know more if she's in the room, but I know that we talked about it last week and I haven't looked at the most recent information this week.
I just see that there's a video box for it. So I assume that it will be televised live, and perhaps you could, if you wanted to, go and watch from the chambers. I'm not sure, but like Amy said, I don't think there's any opportunity to provide public comment or anything like that.
Kyle Chipman, voting member. I will share in the spirit of the beginning or the opening of your question, Jenny. I found the January 22nd City Council Financial Condition and Budget Update session. That one was super helpful because they did provide a lot of that context and forecasting and the why there's a shortfall. Big Beautiful Bill's a big part. Thank you. Why it is not as bad as it could be, but it's in a crisis territory, and just like context, it's not necessarily on the bureaus, but provides some good general fund overview. So that one, January 22nd, City Council Finance Subcommittee Budget Work Session, Financial Condition and Budget Update. That one was super helpful. And I was actually, this is just kind of doubling down. Amy and Jonalyn, you watched that, the City Council, the current service level session from last week as well. And it's kind of like the report where it's like a paragraph at the very end. It's like, that's what my concern is. All this is an afterthought, but it's so consequential and pressing, and everything's pressing. and there's no time to actually have thoughtful conversation.
It is, and to some degree, I mean, because there's such a significant general fund issue, that also helps them understand that utilities are facing financial pressures as well. But deciding to reduce by some percentage the utilities is not going to necessarily help their general fund picture. So there's not a connection between the decision that they a direct connection between the decision they make with utilities and this other huge hole where the bulk of their time is spent. So for better or for worse, that's just the reality.
Time check. We got 9 minutes. I think having this thoughtful conversation, it feels like we're getting pretty close to focal points. I do want to just respond. Oh, this Kyle Chipman, voting member. Lorraine's point, I hear points of escalation where we are in concert with the bureaus, and we're also our own organizing body, advocates for community, and the absence of communication delivered, not just maybe we have that at either the leadership meeting or even the next meeting. What does escalation look like? If that's even a viable phrase or way of thinking, but I feel it and I hear it. And even if it's just to make the point heard, to share that this is not this kind of like hyper-vigilant, reactive, tight compressed time frame for such macro challenges is you got to learn from it. Learn from it each time. And even if our point of escalation can help to drive a learning.
Yeah, and to add on that, I mean, Lorraine speaks with such wisdom and experience of years of this messaging and the need for escalation. I think there have been elements of that, and perhaps more strongly the last couple of years, sharing concerns about the lack of effective public engagement and the timeliness of information. And so that certainly seems like an important element to any opportunity for feedback and for council to hear that directly from Pub. I also have been thinking that outside of whatever the process is for making recommendations this year, that when we get to the end, that it may be very beneficial as one of the advisory committees, providing feedback directly to council about serving as an advisory board and what the needs are through the budget process to both the budget office and the mayor and just the leadership generally, so that there is some expectation setting on both sides. And as we've shared, the council has also been, evaluating the advisory board process and what the roles are. And so there will be opportunity as that continues to move forward and bylaws need to be changed and code updated, that there will be additional opportunity for direct engagement and feedback through that process by this fall as well. So I think there's some opportunities that I hope Pub can take advantage of and speak from how it feels as the volunteers who are trying to take your valuable time to provide this input and not feel, informed the way that you need to be.
We're at 6 minutes. I will yield the floor to Lorraine in a moment. I want to double down on that, even if we're not preparing it for this issuance or this point of testimony, written or verbal, this is the same point I was trying to flag 3-4 months ago about misaligned city communication and the way that we see it play out through bureaus. All of these challenges, let's hit this point. And we have that advisory committee report, survey, all that time and capital invested to produce that thing. Hey, ground level, here's the friction we feel and what's observed. Lorraine, you have the floor.
Thanks, Lorraine Wilson, voting member. Thanks, Amy. I just want to say that, we could walk on chew gum, right? While the process is happening, things could happen. And however, even though the utilities dollars, when you compare it to whatever the gap is, looks small. I don't know how we can communicate this to council, city manager, or whatever. Whatever hits that fan with regard to rates, nobody gonna be thinking about that gap. Nobody's going to be thinking about that gap. So just tell them, as we escalate, it's not to be contentious. It's almost like I'm willing them to understand what can be, what they will be facing when Portlanders get that first bill with this additional fee, and there's discrete, and there's like, okay, what we getting for our money? It could get very ugly. And if that could be communicated on some level, especially to the new city manager, because I don't want him to run into first year as a administrator here and be subjected to that kind of outrage and challenge. So, and there is definitely less communication that I've ever encountered. It almost seems like the edicts that is being passed down is like, okay, don't share with that group because we got to keep everything close to our chest. And I've never, well, somewhat last year, but this is the first year I'm feeling like, oh, no, we have to keep this very tight because of whatever reason. And that is what I'm experiencing. And that is where is my concern, because I have never experienced as a pub member in the first 3 years that I've served where I've seen less of facade and oh my God, my brain just went. I got a brain fart. Celia. This is the first year I have seen less of them and had less conversation with them than any time serving on the pub. And that is where my concerns come from, that I am not talking with, it's not a conversation, it's not a back and forth, it's not a like question, and it's like, no. It's like, Pashad, what you mean by that? You know, what does this mean? There is none of that. And there's where my concern lies. So it is real. It is real and it's concerning. And it's not going to be pretty. Or it could become very ugly. Thanks.
Thank you. In the 2 minutes we have, anything response, Amy, or in the 2 minutes we have remaining to try to like hone in on some core messaging?
No, nothing yet.
So I'm going to just share what I got, what I've heard. Amy, if you want to maybe compliment, and then if anybody wants to throw out some final points, I think we're pretty darn close though. So I'm going to just lead off with Lorraine's impassioned clarity, the implications of bureau, city afterthoughts on rate increase, and just like treating the bureaus as an afterthought as general fund takes priority, and the implications rolling downhill for our Portlanders. I think the one that I'd flagged and that Daryl had flagged, the being able to receive those 3 scenarios and look at the reductions and at least provide some kind of weight or observation. These would hurt a lot. These are really painful. Please, these are absolute last resort. That combined rate review projection and trying to, however possible, avoid the absence of tacked on additions over time. If you're going to forecast it strong and with intention. And then Alexis's point of the protection of financial assistance programs. Is there anything were those all accurate or were they misrepresented?
Kyle, it looked like you were following off some notes. I'm wondering if you could just share screen really quick, just to,
yeah,
so we could just, I can. It just helps me remember to see it visually.
I mean, that's me too.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, of course. Okay, yeah. As it falls, the Portlanders is the big thing.
This is Jenny. I just want to say we need to know what's the reasoning behind the, what they want to do. Why? Like how did they get to that decision? And I don't think we're going to get the answer, but I mean, if I was evaluating it, I would want to know.
Can you define who is the why, or who is the who and what is the why? Jenny?
Okay, so they're saying, these are what we propose to cut, and these are not.
Oh,
how did they get to that? How
And
did
the rationale behind the three scenarios you're saying?
exactly?
Like this?
Yeah.
Okay, this
Why?
scenario, this. Understood. Thank you.
Yeah.
And I would say that the bureaus, at least historically, I don't know what their constraints will be this year, but when they share information about what is on the table, they will provide information about why those are the decisions that they made. They generally have always shared that information because it provides the rationale for the trade-offs they considered so that you can consider similar trade-offs and decide whether you agree or advocate differently.
Got it. Thanks.
Was there
This might-
anything? Brooke, please.
Oh, so yeah, Brooke Branu, voting member. Just on that last point, I think it would be good to just specify. I'm sure they're planning to present, some level of this, but it would just be good to specify that with those rationales to also have a sense of like the available options that they consider, or the options that they consider available, like which knobs basically are able to be turned beyond the rationale for selecting whichever specific knobs are selected. So that's a little bit of a clumsy metaphor.
No,
but
like interdependent levers of control. If we reduce this, it flows and it hits this, or that like the way that those decisions are interrelated.
Exactly, yeah. Like how can we trace the impacts of what decisions are being made to instead of just saying this is the decision that was made, and on the other end, out comes this impact that we expect. It doesn't have to be like, a complete one-to-one mapping, but just something to help guide our thinking as far as how to think about all of the decisions that the Bureau is making, how to think about them in context with each other.
Yeah, that's a great point, Brooke.
Is there anything else you had heard?
And just to jump in on
that,
those points, Brooke, sorry. This is the type of information we've been provided with in the past, right? And it seemed like we used to get it on a timely basis ahead of them going to council or when they had commissioners and all that stuff. That's the kind of information we used to get, and we're like, oh, okay, if we do this, here's how it's going to impact employees. Who are the key employees to doing the job? We have to protect the people, boots on the ground, who, when something shuts down, they are the ones available. We have that resource for they to go and do the work. And that's the kind of conversations we used to have. If we cut this, here's who it's going to impact. Here's which program is going to be impacted. That's the kind of information. And thanks so much for raising it, because that is exactly the kind of information we used to be receiving on an ongoing. And I'll even go so far to say that information, that conversation used to start, I think, in probably October or November. Amy, you could correct me. And we used to be complaining it was too late, even back then, right? So just to give you an idea give you perspective of why I am like almost like what is going on. It's almost like we're being pushed into the wall, and then we'll have to do something so we don't hit that wall, and we have to make that spur of the moment decision, which is very concerning.
Anything else you've heard, Amy, in the interest of time before we move on to announcements?
No, I don't think so. I think you captured really well what we heard today. And I think the elements that you've raised in prior meetings around infrastructure, around intergenerational equity, and all those other elements kind of fit under some of those. So yeah, I think there's lots of connections to be made.
I think the only piece I want to flag, which has shifted my thinking a little bit, it's toward the points Lorraine was raising, that escalation messaging around how much friction and how just all the implications of this, our experience and the ways it can impact either other advisory councils or change the flow of this kind of decision-making process in the future when we deliver that, and how we are very precise.
Yeah. And the ability for staff. I knew that, some specific staff were mentioned who we have seen them less, but not because they're not in the room.
Yeah.
They're in the room today, and they are still doing all this work behind the scenes and also struggling with the timelines. And it's the hierarchy and what folks are able to share, that is where the rub and challenge is in making information public that is not ready to be made so. So just
They're
acknowledging the challenge for those folks who are doing incredibly challenging work. And so appreciation and recognition for them as well. Prashad, Cecilia, and the many others who fall into their teams and the work that they do.
Beautiful. With that, well said, care and compassion, we will look towards announcements and our next meeting. Feel free to grab screen share back, Amy, if you have the slides.
Great. Really quickly, Jonalyn, do you want to just announce?
Sure. Yeah, the recruitment posting is live, so it's open through April 1st. I'm still in the early stages of marketing the recruitment, but please share with your networks. We only have one regular voting member and then one labor member who is a voting member, but would have to be one of the utility labor union members. Yeah, please refer folks to staff with questions if they are interested but not sure. And then soon we'll be asking pub members about your interest in serving on a potential recruitment committee, subcommittee.
A quick question, Jonalyn, is there like a late can you share the posting with us and anything on LinkedIn or tag us in LinkedIn or whatever so we can reshare?
Yeah, I did share it today by email and hopefully that went through, but if not, I'll share again. Yeah.
Great. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And then the final pieces is just the pub leadership team meeting was shifted because of schedules. So we're meeting on March 12th, which I hope will be valuable timing because we'll have seen the information on March 11th and the co-chairs can do some debriefing and planning with utility leadership after that. And then our upcoming meetings are more of the same. So we'll talk about budget feedback and the many other projects and items underway. We do, the bureaus can provide information about regulatory drivers. That's been requested previously. So we can fit that into future meetings where time allows and other updates that are previously scheduled or planned. Kyle, back to you.
Thank you. I have one quick point related to the March 10th ARC meeting that Cormac will be, he'll be representing pub. After having wrapped up the past one, I would love, that's the way to say it. There were some additional materials, both like the actual city code or the policy that dictates the function and regulatory oversight or whatever of the ARC itself. And then just some supplemental, like here's how rates are set. Here's kind of like those levers of control that Brooke was flagging, like here's the actual mechanics that the ARC can render based on these met criteria. So I'd love to get that little package ready, send it over to Jonalyn and Amy, just as a quick, it's just pulling city code stuff, but like here's a couple of additional documents in addition to the case studies that you're going to receive. And that's just a nice little onboarding. So I'll probably do that, I don't know, maybe Sunday or something. It's the weekend, send over to staff, and then send over to Cormac for future ARC members as well.
Yeah, sounds good. Thanks, Kyle.
Thank you.
Perfect. And we'll use that for future onboarding stuff too. So I appreciate the time you put into it. And with that, I think we're to the end.